Welcome to the Brothers of Dynasty podcast, the best fantasy football podcast hosted by three brothers from Rhode Island who know that Jimmy G, in his heart of hearts, truly was always meant to come back to the Patriots and replace Mac Jones. Bring Jimmy home. Screw Mac Jones. Get rid of him. Bring Jimmy Garoppolo back home. He's never made a mistake in his life.
Narrative.
He knows how to play football. That's the guy. Oh, welcome to the show, everyone. Live stream edition. I'm your host, Josh Christensen, joined by Andrew and Jay, my two brothers, and an honorary brother of Dynasty for the night, Mr. Mike. I'm not going to lie. I just forgot your last name. I know your last name. This is fucking. We're doing it live, everybody. I know your last name. It just went out of my head in the moment I was announcing you, Mr. Mike Hicks. Drop the mic. If you've watched Jay's other show, the Fantasy Cheat Sheet, you know Mike from that. Writes for Going for Two and does a bunch of other stuff that he'll plug at the end of the show. But Mike, thanks so much for being here. And in true Brothers of Dynasty fashion, are you drinking anything tonight? Anything you want to plug? Any libations?
I am drinking a churro stout from a local brewery.
Ooh,
churro. So is it
love that
churro in a can?
Yes.
Nice.
And Jay, what are you drinking tonight?
Tonight I have I never tried this brewery before. It's from Vermont Shed Brewery, and this is a mountain ale. It's a brown ale, so a little different. And it's good.
Yep. If you need me, I'll be in the shed.
Yeah, that's their motto.
Does anyone watch?
Be drinking a beer in the shed.
Do any of you watch What We Do in the Shadows by any chance on FX? Nah, well, it'd be lost on everyone. I don't need to explain.
No, maybe we'll get it.
But anyways, you should watch that show. It's terrific. Andrew, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm not drinking anything. I'm on my dry streak. Just nothing. And I'm watching right now. I'm watching Ozark season 4, part 1. So
currently, while we're live streaming right now.
Yeah, I can't be bothered with whatever we're talking about. Was it the Super Bowl this weekend? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, Netflix, great programming. Ozark season 1, season 4, I'm 4 episodes in. It's been great so far. I'm really enjoying it.
And that is what he is drinking. Fine, high quality entertainment. Yeah. What am I drinking, you ask? Well, I've got a nice cocktail here. It's a gin Aperol Spritz. Really lovely. I've drank it on the show before, so everyone should know the ingredients and be able to make it themselves at this point. I'll be testing you halfway through the show. But we should move on to some football. But first, I should tell you that the Brothers of Dynasty are part of the Fantasy Football Collective network of podcasts. You can find Fantasy Football Collective at FF_collective. That's collective with a K on Twitter for more great content and other podcasts like the Fantasy Nightcap, the Fantasy Boardroom, and Collective Knowledge. So check all of that out. So today we will be continuing our regressive redraftable series going back in time, and we'll be looking at the 2018 rookie Superflex tight end premium draft. We're going to redraft those guys, knowing what we do now and projecting into the future. But first, we had some news this week. First, we'll get to game reactions from the championship weekend real fast, but I did want to just go over the coaching hires real quick that have been announced. So Josh McDaniels hired for the Raiders, Brian Daboll hired by the Giants, Matt Eberflus hired by the Bears, and Nathaniel Hackett hired by the Broncos. I should also say another bit of news that came out today. Brian Flores will most likely not be a head coach anywhere else this year because he is suing the NFL and teams as part of a class action suit around institutional racism in the NFL. And the NFL had the gall to release a statement today being like, we don't have a problem with this. Diversity is at our core today, to which everyone collectively said, that's a lot of bullshit, NFL. That's not what you're going over. So, unfortunately, Brian Flores most likely will not be coaching anytime soon in the NFL as well, which is a shame because I thought he was an excellent coach for the Dolphins. That firing was all surprising. I think we all had that as kind of a big surprise this offseason, but good for him for making a real sacrifice probably in his career and going up against the NFL, and that it does remind you a lot of Colin Kaepernick and that kind of sacrifice as well. But this is a fantasy football show, and I don't know if we have too much more to add around that situation other than to say, best of luck to Brian Flores. But of these coaching hires, anyone stick out to you as possibly an improvement or a downgrade or something that worries you for fantasy football? Mike, as you're our guest, I'll throw it to you first.
I really believe that the Nathaniel Hackett is going to be Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
My God, the Broncos are so thirsty for Aaron Rodgers.
I still believe that's the reason.
That's the play.
I saw people on Twitter saying that had absolutely nothing to do with it, and I call BS on that. I still think that's one of the reasons. That's maybe it's not the reason, but it is a reason.
I don't see how you can't make that connection at least.
Exactly.
Be like, that's viable. To be like, what of it? I don't see how these two are related. It just
do they know each other? Have they met before?
And if that
never been in
does
the same room.
And if that does happen, I mean, for dynasty purposes and just football purposes in general, I love all the weapons in Denver. At the end of the year, I had a team that had Gronk and Big Ben that is in the middle of the pack. A guy was going for the championship. He traded me those two for Fant and a pick. So I got Fant and a pick for Gronk and Big Ben, and he ended up losing and not even making it to the chip. So I'm loving the fact that I have Fant now because Big Ben's retired, and we know Gronk's probably going to do the same. The one that scares me, just being a Chiefs fan, is I think McDaniel's going to turn it around. The question is Derek Carr going to be the quarterback for him in the future?
Yeah, that's division.
Feel like it to me.
Imagine if Denver does pull down, Aaron Rodgers to Denver, and Josh McDaniels continues to, improve that Raiders team. That division is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Which one is the one point that I would say around like Aaron Rodgers is, why would you want to go to a division that has Mahomes and Herbert in it? And then regardless, I think the Raiders are probably most likely the worst team in that division if the Broncos get a guy like Aaron Rodgers, no matter what they do. I think like that division's just going to be what the NFC West was this year. Jay, I'll throw it to you though. Any other coaching reactions here?
I mean, I like Daboll to the Giants. I mean, anything is a step in the right direction there. We've liked his offense in Buffalo, so that team is in serious need of a turnaround offensively for the likes of Saquon Barkley. Maybe you could salvage Daniel Jones. I don't know about that, but there are some playmakers there that if you can get them the ball, it would be appreciated, especially if you have Barkley on your team. I'm really looking at it for Saquon Barkley. I think stability from the coaching perspective is a step in the right direction. Now we just got to look at that O-line and then a little health with Barkley. We're going to talk about a little bit later on this show with his rookie class. Maybe that'll go a long way. That offense will be better next year.
Andrew, any thoughts to wrap up our coaching discussion?
Yeah, no, I probably echo the same thing. I like Hackett and Daboll, bring some offensive minds to some teams that I think definitely need to be turned around in that sense. Don't know quite as much about Eberflus, previously being defensive coordinator for Indy, so we'll see what he has to bring. That's probably the one that I know the least about, but I agree. The McDaniels in Oakland is probably going to be an uphill battle. We like him and what he's done in New England. But yeah, not sure based on some audio that I heard. And I think I was telling you guys about earlier that he doesn't sound too confident in Carr being his guy. He might go with him, but when questioned about how do you feel about going into a team that's sort of already set with like a top quarterback. And he was essentially just like, yeah, he's fine. It just could not have been more neutral in a public address about Carr. So I could see things being shaken up, and being in that tough of a division, he's going to be fighting for it. So
best
of luck, but that's going to be a tough position to fight through.
Yeah, I believe Vegas was one of the teams on Russell Wilson's list of 4 teams that he'd be willing to go to. So, I mean, if you can get
See,
Russell
I don't remember
Wilson,
that. Yeah,
that's
that'd be great.
obviously an upgrade. If Russell Wilson ends up being on the move, obviously that's not exactly something that just happens overnight. But I mean, I don't think you can be a team in the AFC, particularly looking at the QB landscape around you, going, no, we're fine with a middle of the road guy. Granted, you may not be able to improve upon that. Like, certainly this is not the draft necessarily to put all your eggs in Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis or what have you. But like, you got Herbert, you got Mahomes in your own division. Then you've got Burrow and Lamar. Then you also have why am I forgetting Josh Allen? Jesus Christ, Josh Allen, and then some other like Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be a generational prospect who could be on the rise. People like that who have higher ceilings as well. Like, you can't possibly look at your road there and think that you're going to be okay with just mediocre QB play. And maybe you think Derek Carr's more than that. Maybe that is the case. And maybe the reality is there's just not a lot of other better options than Derek Carr, like there is right now. Maybe you're riding it out another year, and if you end up out of the playoffs, you make a major play for Young or Stroud or one of the what's supposed to be a better QB class. But Oakland just might be one of those teams stuck in the middle for a while longer, which they have been for a few years now. It feels like the water level's certainly rising there. You quickly realize that that conference, the AFC, is pretty stacked with some up and coming quarterback talent, and it's just let alone just as you mentioned in their division alone, and it just feels like it is a tough path to get to that AFC conference championship and to the Super Bowl. So yeah, the reality is if you want to be a mediocre quarterback, you want to be in the NFC, which just got a little bit less talented on that side with Tom Brady officially retiring as of today. We had a report from Schefter early last week that was, if you were on Twitter and we're seeing anything around it, people dunking. I remember there's people like dunking on Schefter around there.
Why?
I don't know why, because like I just came back to the whole thing of like ESPN's standing by us, so their sources have to be pretty impeachable. Like, I don't think you just like Schefter's not just putting that out there, but people are like, oh, just like really botched this story.
It's fun to dunk on Schefter, Josh.
It's not a story to even botch. It's just like, I have this viable information. I'm going to report on it.
Yeah, that's just how reporting works. I don't know.
He's jumped the gun before, so people I think were just getting on him for that.
I don't really know when.
Well, there's also like I don't love like the whole race to get things right too. Is kind of like
I mean,
it's like a one-upmanship of like I had the story. It's like, oh my god, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean that's not really a Schefter problem. That's a problem with the ecosystem of journalism going back decades and decades.
He gets crap from the
you want to have that
report that came out where he said he ran the story by what was the GM or the owner.
Yeah, it was something like that.
I mean, for stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean, I think you just need to understand when it comes to, and obviously I've worked in the journalism business for the better part of a decade now, and in my day job as well. I think you just need to understand what different types of journalism are, and like Adam Schefter's not an investigative journalism. He's not speaking truth to power. He's an access journalist. He's not an aggregator. He's breaking news. Aggregators are people who sit on sites like Bleacher Report and see what Shefty tweeted and then write a story based off of that. He's an access journalist. Like, his bread and butter is made from being the most sourced, knowing the people with the information and them giving him that information earlier. It is a symbiotic relationship because he puts out the reports early that can be beneficial to teams in the right places, or in other times like this, he's getting information, he's reporting it because it gets eyeballs on stories and it drives traffic to ESPN, and it like ultimately builds up all of that sort of thing. So that's just reality around Adam Schefter.
I meant curator, but he maintains relationships, gets information, and distributes that as is beneficial.
Yeah, and that is what it is, and there is a need for that in journalism, but it is not the only thing that is needed in journalism. But this is not a media criticism podcast. This is a football podcast. And getting back to the
we're
news,
not going to take down the 24-hour news cycle and
no, we're not. We're not on the media from WNYC. It's Tom Brady retired, and I don't think we quite know what the fantasy implications are for this, other than the obvious that Tom Brady was a major piece for a lot of teams that were competing these past few years, and he's just another one of those dynasty pieces that you probably watched go off into the sunset because he was literally left the game as the fantasy QB2 this past year and was statistically the best quarterback in the NFL this past year.
Yep.
And obviously an absolutely incredible career that doesn't need to be stated, and we know he's not there, and a lot remains to be seen as it affects the Buccaneers with who could end up there. We talked a lot about QB carousel on previous episodes, and there's a lot that's going to be moving around, but I don't think any of us have quite an idea of what that looks like. But I mean, it's not going to be Tom Brady throwing to Mike Evans, and I don't know if Chris Godwin re-signs there this year after that. I mean, so I guess until further notice, are you guys downgrading offensive players still under contract on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah, I would downgrade Evans a little bit just because the uncertainty. If you have a guy close in your rankings, I have to go back and look where I have him just to kind of evaluate. But if you're, in a tie situation, you got him in a tier, maybe he moves to the back of that tier just because what if Kyle Trask is starting to him next year? I don't think that happens. But good God.
Can they send Winston
that would be fine. That would be fine.
Slinging it around. Evans was great with that guy slinging.
Oh, yeah. No, I would feel a lot better about that than Blaine Gabbert or Kyle Trask. I'll tell you that. And then they don't have a lot of other guys like under contract. There's not a whole lot except for the young guys. Like Leonard Fournette's a free agent. Gronk probably retires. And then Chris Godwin probably signs with another team. So there's just that's a very different team next year. So it is not going to be
like now.
It's a gross division. There are really no quarterbacks in that division at all. At the moment.
I mean, I would say
is Matt Ryan the best quarterback?
Yes.
If he's on that team.
Yeah.
He's on the team.
If he's on that team, he's the best quarterback. But that may be the dregs. If they don't really solve those things, because that you kind of hit the nail on the head there, Jay, with that roster. They have obviously Godwin's not under contract. Antonio Brown's already left the building and maybe this galaxy, at least in his mind. And you don't have a lot of the defensive pieces signed, like JPP's not signed. I believe one of their players in the secondary. There's a few big pieces on defense.
Yeah, they kept everything together.
Ryan Jensen, their all-pro center's another underrated name on that offense. That
killed them when he went down. You can't keep a team together that long. They kept really the whole team together to defend a Super Bowl. Like that's almost impossible to do normally. To do it that team's going to start to go through the rebuild cycle, however long that takes.
They're not doing great cap wise either. They need to.
No.
I would imagine they're going to kind of recycle things, but I have a hard time believing they're going to go into next season with Kyle Trask as their starting quarterback.
No, you can't.
What is the chance that they're just like the biggest tank candidate next in 2023? They will have the
number one pick and get
not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
That's exactly what I'm like. They
could really just head cap and honestly go to the bottom. The problem is they'll probably win at least 3 of the games in their division, even if they are bad, because you've got the Carolina Panthers, the Saints, who will not be able to afford Jameis Winston next year because they are negative $70 million in cap space. And Jameis is going to get paid this offseason. Jameis is by far the best free agent QB candidate with a lot of QB needy teams. And then you have the Falcons, who are not good either. So maybe they end up at the bottom of the league. I don't really know, but it'll be interesting to see where that division, who comes out of that division next year without
It'll
Brady.
be the opposite of the Kansas City division there, that like where it's going to be hard to fight to the top of that one. This will be a division that's tough to fight to the bottom of. I'm trying to tank, but everyone's bad. We have to face them twice a season.
Oh God. Let's move on to some quick game reactions to this past weekend. Mike, do you just want to just want to get something off your chest? Do you just want to vent a little bit about your Kansas City?
Right.
Do you want the solo camera?
No, you're
good.
Solo camera I don't need the solo. There's three things in no particular order that really just drive me nuts with this game. One, how do you only score 3 dang points in the second half with that offense? That has to be somewhat of the play calling. I think he took the pedal off the gas pedal. He did not. I don't think Andy Reid and Bieniemy called the second half correctly. They stopped. They went too conservative. But the biggest thing for me in that second half was those last 2 drives. Mahomes running around like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to do too much when he had, in one play, Pringle was open in the freaking left corner of the end zone. There was another play that Tyreek was open. He tried to do way too much, got sacked too many times on that last drive, and then a couple times when they needed to try to run the clock out even more in the end, he goes and runs the ball out when he could have just freaking slid and got the same exact amount of yardage.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem that I have after about a day of reflecting on this game was the end of the first half. 11 seconds on the clock. You call a stupid timeout because they couldn't get the play in. Then they run a pass play, incomplete, 7 seconds on the clock. Then they run another pass play, try to throw a little dink out to Tyreek, trying to get him to get into the end zone. He gets tackled at the 1 yard line, but they can't call a timeout because they don't have any. So the time,
Andy Reid. Classic.
Yeah, the time runs out.
Yeah.
They can't get a field goal. That field goal, I know the Bengals could have done more, but that field goal could have won us the game. Andy Reid, Get your head out of your rear end.
Yeah, that was classic old school Andy Reid. He had been good. He'd been good for a while, and now he went back to his roots there. That was
Yes. And then I even heard a conspiracy theory that he could be hanging him up this year and Bieniemy could be coming in. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. He's been a coach for 20-something years combined. If that does happen, I'll be happy in the sense that Bieniemy is getting a job. And maybe that shows why he didn't go interview certain places that supposedly he had a chance to and didn't.
It's almost a McDaniels like theory. When
except McDaniels never got the job. Belichick's like over my dead body.
But I've also seen that
I'm going to keep the job.
Things are going to change no matter what in that organization. A little bit of a mix-up. I mean, that defense was hot garbage that game. Dumpster fire even.
Dumpster fire. I don't know.
That
one or the other.
Dumpster fire.
One or the other.
God.
They're very different.
Same thing.
Steve Spagnuolo needs to go.
All dumpster fires are hot garbage. Not all hard garbage is dumpster fires. That's where we're at. I just had a picture. We're talking about the Josh McDaniels Belichick situation of like basically Belichick as succession as like fuck off McDaniels. You're not a killer.
You're not a killer.
McDaniels, too much birthday.
It's not your time. It's not your time.
Yeah, I agree. I thought all of that was bad. I thought that game truly was. I mean, it's a great story with the Bengals, but this is what happens when you basically have a year where there's no great team.
Sure.
And like it's single elimination, weird things happen. Like the Bengals didn't necessarily like win that game on offense. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Joe Burrow's a great quarterback. I think we're going a little crazy with the Joe Burrow is willing that team to the playoffs. The defense is willing that team to the playoffs. Like
right, Josh,
Joe Burrow made some
for
timely
you.
plays. What?
I already know how you feel about a certain quarterback. Would you rather have Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert?
Oh, Justin Herbert, 10 out of 10 times.
This is what I was thinking exactly, is that you just hate like the Joe Burrow love because it keeps bringing back up that question of Joe Burrow versus Herbert.
I don't really think it's
Herbert. Goddamn it!
I don't really think it's a question. Justin Herbert is just a better all around quarterback. There's 22 people on the field, and I mean, it's like I think I tweeted this out at this point. Joe Burrow got the ball in a good situation in the second half, threw a pick immediately, and then almost threw the game away to Nick Bolton. If Nick Bolton does it on a terrible throw, if Nick Bolton doesn't drop that play, the Chiefs win that game. And we're having a much different conversation about Joe Burrow. I get all the things. He's a really good quarterback.
Yeah, he's great. He's really good.
He's in his second year, and the defense carried them, and he made some timely plays. He also wasn't that good at points for good stretches during in the Oakland game. He was bad in the second half. He didn't put away that game after a good second half.
They didn't put away either of the first 2 games that they were up. They didn't.
No, I mean, and granted, it's just he took 9 sacks in the second game against Tennessee. That's partly a bad O-line. That's partly bad play calling, but then it's also partly him holding the ball too long. But at the same time, they got that interception. He made that 20-yard out throw to Jamar Chase. They kick a field goal and they win the game. In this past game, there was a lot of stuff that Kansas City did to help them out. He had some bad plays, but then he had those 2 scrambles, which really kept them in it when that defense was bearing down on him. So, hats off to him for being a second-year pro in the playoffs in those moments at those times, making those plays. But I think let's not get it twisted too much to say that Joe Burrow put this team on his back and went to the Super Bowl. It really, most of the credit has to go to that defense, and that's not an insult to Joe Burrow. That's saying that defense was absolutely incredible in this playoffs. The adjustments they made second half against Kansas City, because as much as Kansas City shot themselves in the foot, but they started to just go to single high safety, which you weren't supposed to do against KC, and they just were lights out against. And Hendrickson was great in that game. They did a great job against Tennessee. They did obviously a great job against Oakland as well. So that defense is for real, and I didn't think they would be in the playoffs.
No. They were
so
great.
Yeah. And then there was another game, the Rams versus San Francisco. Andrew, let's you talk about that game.
I don't know what to say about that game.
Great, let's move on to our draft, everybody.
Debo!
That's all. The guy on the
Cooper Kupp
losing
was awesome.
team. Yeah, no. Kupp is awesome and Debo's awesome. That's my biggest takeaway.
Matt Stafford, very cool that he's making a Super Bowl.
That Jimmy G ending, what an an underwhelming end to the game with Jimmy G doing a Carson Wentz flip the ball.
Terrible. That wasn't underwhelming. That was thrilling, to be honest.
Thrilling.
Was it? All right. Well, you can have that. I mean, personally, I think JaMychal Hasty just really messed that one up. Nothing on Jimmy G. I think Hasty should, if he had knees, he would have gotten up there and gotten it. But that was bad way to end. Sort of embarrassing, but
yeah, it wasn't that great. We should really move on to this draft. We're half an hour into the program.
I'm looking at the clock and can I kick things off real, or do you want to introduce?
I gotta introduce the draft, Andrew.
Do you have to?
I introduced it 30 minutes ago. People are listening. They're like, they have no idea what we're doing. So we're doing, as we've done our past few weeks. Let me introduce the draft, Andrew.
Go ahead.
We're doing the redraft of the 2018 rookie class. We're doing them 2 rounds, 12-team Superflex tight end premium mock. And our order will go Andrew, then Mike, then me, then Jay, and repeating there for 24 picks. This was an interesting draft. This may be the worst one we've done yet.
This class is bad now.
Remember how you felt about it in 2018? You're like, oh my God, there's a round's worth of running backs.
Yeah, no,
There's
not so
about
much.
a one round of good players in this draft.
I think this will be our most drafted tight ends of any draft. Andrew, let's kick
Tight
it
end
off with the
premium.
101.
Yep, it's Josh Allen. Next pick.
Ooh, shocker. Yeah, no, there's no need to explain Josh Allen. He's a clear 101.
Yeah, just like Kyler last week. It's
he's the 101 in Superflex startups. He's the 101 in this draft.
Yes.
Mike, let's go to you at the 102.
Lamar Jackson.
Also, I
easy.
think
next pick.
not too much is needed there. We'll go to this one's tough, honestly.
It's just shit from here.
It's not shit. This is
I want to go.
No,
that
it's
far,
not
but-
shit.
The
But I mean,
decisions, not
not
the
yet.
players.
This
Not
is
yet.
a tough choice, though. I know it.
this
what
is
you're
a tough
debating.
choice, and only because but only because this is tight end premium, and there's question marks with other players. And Mark Andrews has been great for 3 years, and he was the tight end one this year.
It's Andrews.
He was better than Travis Kelce. Yeah. But I mean, there's other players who just by name alone you want to take, but it's Mark Andrews in a tight end premium. He's one of 3 difference-making tight ends that you have in the league right now.
Yeah, he's 1 or
That's
2
that.
overall in Dynasty. It's Pitts and Andrews for me, at least. Those are my top 2 for Dynasty. So
Yeah, me
in a
as well.
startup, so.
And then it's like Kittle, Kelsey, Waller, Hawkinson, some combination of those guys after that. But those are the top 2 guys. 25, some draft for the Ravens this year. Lamar, Andrews, Hayden Hurst, Darnold, you
Just wait,
Hopefully
Hayslip.
later.
Just wait, Hayslip.
Oh, we'll get to him much, much later in the program.
Maybe,
He is in my top 24.
maybe.
Jay, let's go to
I
you
had
next.
to look, I'm like, is he my next quarterback? I don't know.
I just want to
not-
say
he's
hi
not.
to
He's not.
Tommy
Tommy!
Tipple, who's on. If he's still on, mates, much love. And he had the classic on our show in the summer argument with you, Josh, about Sam Darnold. I think that went on for a half hour of the.
Oh, and what side was I on? I was on the anti-Sam Darnold side, and Tommy was on the pro-Sam Darnold side.
That's
And
true. You
feel
were
pretty good
both
about
right.
that.
You were both right for parts of the season.
we were not both right. I was right.
It was
For
well
parts of
moderated
this season.
discussion.
We'll rehash it when I take him with the 212. Let's go.
I have a very hard decision here between 2 guys.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna go
Go
with
with
the
your heart,
high,
Jay.
the high of highs. I'm gonna stick with Saquon here, and because I
agree.
believe he can turn it around. I know Chubb's right here. He's more consistent and hasn't fallen on. He didn't get hit by the injury bug like Saquon did the last 2 years, and obviously his team wasn't quite as inept as the Giants. But you had. Saquon basically was number 1 or number 2, depending on your scoring, his rookie year. So the highs have been really high. He won you ships. Second year, too, down the stretch, he crushed it because I had him on a team that won a championship where the beginning of the year was a little off, missed a couple of games, but then down the stretch was just absolutely killing it, particularly in the fantasy playoffs. So I would take that if I could go back in time, knowing, and now I still think he could turn it around next year. I'm a believer, and I think he's a good buy for next year if you can get him at a low price. So I'm going to stick with my guy, Saquon Barkley, and I still think their future can be bright with him. And he's still young. That guy's like 25 next season, so still hope there.
I agree. He's still young. He's still crazy talented. And that year, too, when I don't think we think about, it's like, oh, he had one good year. He had a higher points per
Yeah, he
game
was top 10
average in
that
his
year.
second year. Higher points per game average than Nick Chubb has had in any season.
Nick Chubb's been remarkably like back end top 10. Like he can't get past like 9th. Like
I have
due to
it.
whatever,
Yeah, I have it here. His finishes since he didn't do too much year 1, but since then RB12, RB9, RB11. In 2019 onwards.
And if you think of PPR too, like Saquon caught 41 balls this year. Nick Chubb's never caught that, and Saquon didn't play all the games this year, and that team sucked, and he wasn't necessarily great this year. He caught more passes than Nick Chubb. So Nick Chubb just never, I mean, they bring Kareem Hunt, and he's just never been really used in the PPR game enough to really stabilize or maybe maximize his potential for a ceiling that's higher. He just kind of, he needs to get volume. But
yeah, I agree with all of that. Although, I mean, it's really ceiling versus floor with this because I think it's
for sure.
It's really
still
safe with Chubb.
shooting for the ceiling with Saquon.
Let's move on to the 105. Back to you, Andrew.
Yeah, so I guess I probably would have erred towards Chubb because obviously we love Barkley and he's, that generational talent coming out in 2018 at the running back position. I love that upside, but I'm still going to go with the tangible production of Nick Chubb. He's a pretty good, RB1 performer. Over 1,200 yards this past year. And yeah, not that big in the passing game. Only had 20 receptions for less than 200 yards. Would probably prefer, with his lack of ability or lack of use, I should say, in the passing game, to see him getting more double-digit touchdowns. I think he missed a few games, so he came in at 9 touchdowns combined. I'd like to see a little bit more there, but still just one of the better pure runners in the game. And I don't see Cleveland moving away from him. So he's probably my preference in this running back choice.
Yeah, and to your point, and going back to Andrew Hayslip in the comments posted mostly about the risk profile. I mean, I absolutely agree. And as Jay stated as well, if you want a lower risk player, it's definitely Nick Chubb, and he does give you good production. That's never been the case. It's just at some points, I guess it really depends on team makeup and where you are and how you're drafting your team in a startup or where you are. But you need those true difference makers and take swings at them at a time. And this is a year right now, especially with Nick Chubb in a startup, probably going outside of the top 10 in running backs. This year,
that's also a tough area to analyze it because
they're both kind of in the same area, kind of.
They are, yeah.
Chubb feels like that guy that if I missed the top running backs, I might be waiting longer and taking other I could see myself taking some of those top wide receivers and stuff, or grabbing a wraparound QB instead of going for a lower RB1 like Chubb. It's just, I value him here theoretically, but when it comes down to the real thing, I can see myself passing on him a little.
It's true. It depends on the situation you end up with.
That's where different things.
Exactly. Different. If you're in a startup and you go Christian McCaffrey first round, you may not want to go Saquon Barkley in the third round. You want to go with a heavy RB strategy. You may want to be like, okay, I took a riskier guy up front who hasn't played a lot of games the last 2 years, but is super productive. I may not want to couple that with a guy with a similar profile for the last 2 years with Saquon Barkley. I may want to go with a guy like Nick Chubb, who I'm more confident in their health and their stability. That all goes back to team building, which is kind of a different exercise overall. Let's move to our next pick at the 106, Mike.
All right. So normally I would want to go wide receiver here or running back, but obviously Jay and Andrew took the 2 running backs that I wanted. And at the top of the wide receivers in this class, it is a little sketchy because of quarterback situations and some other stuff, especially with Ridley. I hope he comes back healthy mentally, and I don't think he's going to be a Falcon, but we don't know where he'll end up. I am going on the limb, and I am going Dallas Goedert.
Oh, okay.
Tight end premium.
Yeah.
That is why. Yep.
Yeah, Dallas Goedert, I had a little bit lower than that. I will say this is the most tight ends that we're going to do in any draft this year, just because there are some really good players in this tight end class. But to your point, you mentioned him a little bit. I'm going to go to the next pick with mine at 107. I am going to go with Calvin Ridley, despite obviously, I mean, there's questions on when and where he'll play again. And if he'll play again, honestly, you don't necessarily know how these things are going to go. And obviously, I echo your sentiment. We hope he comes back healthy and ready to play in a space where he's able to. Like, it's obviously a very serious thing. What he was going through. I don't think people quite understand when people were calling him all sorts of names when he went out in the really crass, stupid part of social media and commentary. But like, I don't think people truly understand in the reality. This is a person who spent his entire life building to try to be in the NFL, to play football for his team. You're not just not playing on like just at the drop of a hat. Like, it's truly a serious thing. So hopefully he is getting healthy and getting to where he needs to be. But when he is healthy and when he is playing, he's been an absolute beast. He finished as wide receiver 5 in PPR in 2020 after a very solid first 2 seasons, put up 10 touchdowns. His rookie year averaged 12.9 PPR points. In 2019, averaged 15 PPR points. Had a rough start to the beginning of this year, but that was really a rough start for that offense on the whole for everyone not named Cordarrelle Patterson. I kind of think that he most likely is pretty team proof because he's just one of those guys that fits in any team. He's a solid route runner, can play inside, can play outside, good hands, good body control, can run the full route tree. There's not really a team he doesn't fit on. And it's not like he's got kind of a 50-50 chance to end up with a better quarterback or a worse quarterback than Matt Ryan. And I would probably err that he's probably going to end up on a team that has at least as much. It's probably going to be a contender. I'll say that. It's probably going to be a team that needs a wide receiver that has actually some legit ability to make the playoffs. You've heard like the Patriots be thrown out there. I think that'd be a good fit with Mac Jones as well there. In that upside, I think there's basically 2 wide receivers in this class who I see like legit top 5, top 8 upside with, and he's at the top of that list. So I'll go with him at 107 and move to you, Jay, at the 108.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the other wide receiver here. I did have Dallas Goedert right after this, so right in the mix because I do think he is definitely has a promising future there for you, Mike, with your pick with Ertz out of the equation. Had some good rapport with Jalen Hurts there at the end of the season. DJ Moore is going to be my pick here. He's the other top receiver in this class. And there's another guy we'll get to later that was also with these 2, but it became kind of more of the Ridley Moore show, although Moore has not totally hit what I think we thought his peak was going to be, which is why it keeps him a little behind Ridley here, which I agree. His highest finish so far in average points per game has been 50 in 2019. And since then it's been, right around like 26. It's been more, outside of top, 24 wide receivers. He's not even a wide receiver 2 in terms of the points that he's averaging. And it's really not totally his fault that the quarterbacks that they're running out there with DJ Moore have been mediocre at best. You've got Sam Darnold, you've got Teddy Bridgewater, who isn't going to produce a wide receiver 1 most likely. You've got
Cam Newton, Will Greer, Kyle Allen,
Cam Newton. Like it's not great. So he's a guy who's still only turning 25 in April. So there's still a potential for a bright future there. Has everything you want to see. A guy who still never scored more than 4 touchdowns in a year, 3 years in a row. 4 touchdowns each year.
And 2 has room for improvement.
Yes, it's just like it's one of those things where it's like TDs are fluky. It's bound to come, and it's not coming. So it's you just want to see a better.
No, but they're less bound to come when your offense is bad.
Yeah, And I don't know what the solution is, unfortunately, because there's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks, as we've already gone over at the top of the show. How do you end up with a better situation there in Carolina? I don't really know. Or does he end up on another team once his contract eventually comes up there? Does he end up somewhere else when you're projecting him down the road in Dynasty? I still like DJ Moore a lot. So I think he definitely belongs here in this draft. I think this is where this draft, falls off after DJ Moore. So see if you guys agree.
I agree as well. And just one last note on DJ Moore. And this is just kind of driving home your point. Like, the talent's not the question there. Like, he's had flashes, he's had stretches, but he goes as the team goes. Like, you can't throw and catch the ball. But let's move to our next pick at the 109. Andrew.
Yes, and I agree. There's a noticeable drop at this point, but I still kind of like the pick I have here for tight end premium. I'm going to go with Mike Gesicki. I think we all like Gesicki and his involvement in Miami. Good athletic profile, good athletic, combine. We remember combine standout in 2018. And they've definitely gotten him involved in these years of development. I'm still not quite sold on the consistency he has, but still put up enough good weeks to be tight end 7 this year. 112 targets, 73 receptions for 780 yards. The one area he's really missing, as you were just mentioning about low touchdown, only 2 touchdowns this year. And you have to think a big guy like him could haul in a little bit more. We'll have to see where things go with the shift in that Miami team, but if you even spotted him 4 touchdowns to give him like an average like 6, which doesn't feel like much to ask, he'd be tight end 5 or tight end 4, I think. Like, so it's just, he's very close to kind of like that mid to top range tight end. And if there can be a little bit more consistency to his production, I don't want to see him drop 2 zeros again next year. I think he could solidify himself in kind of that more cachet upper echelon tight end, someone that you actually have confidence starting week in, week out.
Yeah. The one note about Mike Gesicki, I'll say, is he's currently not under contract he's a free agent this year, as is the case with everyone who wasn't a first round pick, or extended already, like Dallas Goedert. So I don't know necessarily where. I'm not going to speculate on their trade, their talks with them. He could very well resign with the Dolphins. That's not really out of the realm of possibility. But
in either way, I like the talent. So
yeah, I'd be interested to see where he ends up if he does go somewhere else as well. He's certainly like crazy athletic. I feel similar to with him as I do about Fant, just with their athletic profiles and kind of the not quite putting it all together yet aspect to their games. Let's go to the 110, Mike.
All right, so I know it's like you guys both said, all of you guys have said, it's a big drop off where we're at right now. This is partly a guy that is also, I believe, a free agent. I'm hoping he can go to a team and get a spot and produce like he did in 2019 compared to what he's done the last 2 years. I know 2021 he was injured. And I can't quit this guy. I'm going DJ Chark.
Yeah.
Mark is definitely that under the radar player right now. Yeah, if he could hop back to the way he produced when we initially saw him break out.
Yeah,
that could be big value.
There's a lot of guys in like a similar boat and others that we'll get to in this draft as Chark, where I feel like there's some talent and then there was some like crowding in the wide receiver room with the guy from the South that we're going to get to a little bit later, or with DJ Chark, where it was just like injury and then just a team in disarray the last 2 years really. But yeah, he was terrific in 2019, and I honestly think the best place for him to stay is right there in Jacksonville.
Yeah,
he was peppered with targets early in the year. His target share was, I think, over 30%, something crazy like that. And, that's certainly something that wasn't a strong point for Jacksonville after he left the season in that Miami game was wide receiver play. So there's certainly a need with him there. And I think that it's only going to get better with Trevor Lawrence down in Florida. Let's move to the next pick, which is mine at 111. God, I literally hate this part of the draft.
Super flex pick.
Yeah, I have to go with Baker Mayfield here.
Yeah.
And this is like, it's honestly, this may be a little bit of recency bias. Obviously, he was hurt this year. overall just was not effective at all. But this is basically how it's gone, because it's not just this year. I think like people being like, if this is the Baker you expect, then you're sadly mistaken. But like, I don't know what Baker to expect, because basically we saw him come in his rookie year, was good his rookie year, like above expectation. His second year, he was terrible. It was really bad his second year. He turned the ball over a lot. He was not as efficient. Everything seemed to regress in his second year. His third year, he started off the season really bad, was benched for Case Keenum in a game. But in the second half of the year, he somehow ended up being really good. Like, really came on strong, made the playoffs, beat Pittsburgh in a playoff game, played well. Then it came into this year, and it was bad this year. Injured also this year, like really injured, apparently. So I don't really know what to expect out of Baker Mayfield. I assume he's going to be the starter in Cleveland for the foreseeable future. Again, we've talked about QBs. I don't know what much better options they have unless they trade for Aaron Rodgers. That there doesn't seem to be much better options there. I don't know if they haven't extended him yet, like some of the other QBs in this class. So we'll see. So I think he's going to be a starter, if not in Cleveland, then somewhere for the foreseeable future, because he's not terrible where he shouldn't be a starter. But I just don't know if he's ever going to be anything more than a stopgap QB2 for you in Superflex. Like, I don't see the world where he's a top 12 QB, year in and year out for you. And I think there's just going to be like all of that inconsistency that we've seen for 4 years now with Baker Mayfield. So I don't feel great about this pick, but it's super flex, and you got to take somebody. And there has been at least moments where he seemed like he could be a legit, winning QB in this league. But those have been few and far in between.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think they really seem like they figured out how to get things just with that offense in general, really banging on all cylinders at the end of the 2020 season. I think sort of running the offense very much through a healthy Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt with him at the helm. I feel like fantasy-wise, he kind of benefited from having those guys kind of lead the way and sort of getting fantasy points and or whatever from all of that. So I don't know what happened to that this season. Maybe it was all injury. We've heard the tail of the tape on all the injuries he suffered this year. So who knows?
Yeah, it's just even beyond that. I think it's two questions. Obviously, like, can he be a starter? One, which I think just the fact that there's like even doubt on that is not great for your dynasty prospects. But two, can he actually be a net positive starting QB in your lineup for you, which I think is very much a question. It's just you're trying to win championships, and I don't know necessarily how viable you are with Baker Mayfield as your second QB unless the rest of your roster is stacked. I think that's just a reality of roster construction. Let's move on to the next pick, though, at the last pick of the first round, to Jay at the 112.
Yeah, this is in a territory where these receivers, I'm going to take a receiver here. I feel like they're really close. You're shooting for a little bit of upside. I'm shooting for a little bit of upside here with Courtland Sutton as my pick. I don't love this, but you're looking at that 2019 season for him where he averaged just about 14 points a game, had over 1,000 yards that year. Finally looked like he was putting it together. This was the Moore, Ridley, and Sutton. Those were the three big wide receivers coming out of this class. And then the other two took off to varying degrees, and Sutton just kind of got stuck. The next year he got injured, and then this year was just a disaster in terms of it completely disappeared. I mean, I know that offense and Teddy B, it was, it's not all necessarily his fault, but like, he got to show up a little bit better than that, and he just never did. I still think there's talent there. It's just you compare him to the other guys here, like Chark, Christian Kirk, Michael Gallup, even, especially if Gallup didn't get hurt, do you take the mystery box of free agent Michael Gallup ending up somewhere and being, I don't know, the de facto one on a team? Do you take the upside of Chark, who's actually kind of flashed a little bit more, or, Christian Kirk, who's stable, you're getting 12 points from him a game, probably somewhere around there. It's just that Sutton's it's just never gotten going. And, the thing for him is you hope Aaron Rodgers ends up there and then, things turn around.
Looks
that
like
would be
had a little bit of breakup with you, Jay, there at the end, a little bit of technical glitch there. But
yeah, it's just basically he needs a better quarterback. That's kind of
I think that's ultimately the thing with some of these other guys. You're looking at possibly free agency and going somewhere else to improve quarterback. With Denver, it's all about getting a new quarterback in there because Courtland Sutton has been extended and he's there long term with Font and Judy and Javonte and Tim Patrick, who I also think had a contract this year as well. It was not bad. I don't mind Tim Patrick. Let's move to the 201. Andrew.
Yeah, I think this is where I'm going to go for upside and switch back over to running back. It might be the recency bias. It might be small sample, but I'm going to go with Rashad Penny just because he was so good down the stretch. Weeks 14 through 18, he was by far the top running back with averaging 22 points a week. So he was really a league winner. And I'm still not ready to move him too far up my board, but if we're getting into the second round of 2018 picks, I feel like he is well worth it going here. And if he can stay healthy, and again, with all these guys, we're mixing in some of the free agency stuff. I don't know that he stays with the Seahawks. I mean, he might have made a good case to be their guy moving forward. I don't know what they're doing with Chris Carson, who's kind of on that second contract, but we'll see how things shake out, but I like the talent when he's fully healthy and going, and could see him performing somewhere else as well. I like going with Rashad Penny here.
It really was insane, his end of the season, because basically his careers went injured for part of the season, RB1 to finish this last season. Like, I think I have his finishes written down here for the last 5 weeks, and it was let me scroll down. It was RB3, RB42, RB9, RB1, RB4, weeks 14 through 18, as you mentioned. So he was the top 5 3 times, top 10 4 times in the fantasy playoffs for you. That's ridiculous. Like, where did that come from? And also, I should just note his contract situation. He is, I believe he's an unrestricted free agent because they did not pick up his 5th-year option, which would have had to have been picked up last offseason. So he is a UDFA, and maybe he just ends up back in Seattle. I don't know if anyone's going to pay him a ton of money in the offseason after a few games. Like every dynasty analyst probably wants him to get paid in Seattle, but we'll see what happens with him in the offseason. Really was impressive those last few games. Mike, let's go back to you at the 202.
All right, so at the 202, I'm going on something that Jay said. I'm going safe on this one because where we're at in the draft. I'm going Christian Kirk. I know he might not be a Cardinal next year, but no matter where he goes, I think he's going to be a safe play.
We've talked about this before on the show that like speed in the NFL is like 3-point shooting in the NBA. It's always going to have a value somewhere. If you can have someone who can just run a go route down the field, that's always going to have a place on the team. And that's what Christian Kirk does. He gets down the field. He takes the top off of the defense. And I think at the very least, wherever he goes, he'll be a streamable option for you. Like, he's deserving of a roster spot, which I think is kind of where we're at in this draft. There's not a lot of, like, we've got a lot of guys who might have some upside, might be flex plays, or might be streamable options, and a lot of guys who you should cut from your team who are just roster clockers. And some of whom are going to get picked in the second round. Like, at the end, I have notes for guys in my top 24, and the end of my notes are like, I have one guy who my note, literally, my 23rd pick in the draft, and you guys can guess who this is later. My notes are a constant disappointment who will continue to get overdrafted. That's my note on a guy that I may pick in this draft.
Is that Rojo?
Yes, it's Rojo. Yeah.
Hey, I win!
I thought he was going to say Darnold.
I have Rojo
No, that's
like
close.
2 spots higher than
Oh God, yeah, but that's where we're at. Let's move on to my pick at 203, and I think I'm gonna dip back into the tight end pool here and go
That
with
makes
Dalton Schultz. He was really good this past year and was at least serviceable the year before. I think he finished as like the tight end 3 on total points and tight end 5 on points per game. He wasn't exactly like, he wasn't anywhere in the echelon of Kelsey or Andrews, so I don't necessarily think he is a league winner for you, but he is what is with tight ends consistently the best of bad options, where he's at least going to give you a safe target floor. He got a decent amount of touchdowns throughout the year. He is a free agent, so I don't know where he lands next year. He's probably going to get paid Austin Hooper style. Hopefully it doesn't go the way of Austin Hooper and completely falls off the face of the earth. But yeah, I think he's a good tight end who likely will be a tight end 1 again next year, and a guy you can kind of set and forget week in and weekend out if you don't happen to have Pitts, Andrews, Kittle, Kelsey, Hawkinson, or Waller. If you don't have those guys and you have Dalton Schultz, could be a lot worse. So that's where I'm at right now. Jay, let's go to you at the 204.
I mentioned him before. I'll go Michael Gallup here just to see where he ends up. Talented receiver stuck in a situation where he's wide receiver 3 on the depth chart. So we'll see if it opens up. He obviously got hurt. That hurts things. But depending on where he ends up, he could be interesting in the future. So I will go with him for upside.
Yeah, I agree there. I do like Michael Gallup. He did have at least like one really quite good year for you. I think it was right around 15 points a game in 2019 as well. Like he was 14, 15, somewhere in there. Hopefully ends up somewhere nice and hopefully sunny for him. 205, Andrew.
Yeah, this is getting real shaky here.
Yeah, it's bad. It's not great.
There were definitely some low lows, but some nice moments. I'll go with Chase Edmonds here. I don't know what his future is with Arizona or like how that sort of sorts out, but he definitely had some useful ability. He does well in the pass game, so he's kind of got enough versatility to have some upside when we're getting into this range.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm making a stellar case for him. I don't even know if I like this pick anyway. I feel like I'm talking myself out of it. I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna take Sam Darnold. It's super flex. Quarterback's king. Just give me Darnold.
Oh God, really? Okay, that you can have him. That's fine. I think that's the worst pick of the draft so far. Mike.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, and suddenly you're going to be taking like Nyheim Hines next. That's great.
Yeah, I am.
That is exactly who I'm taking, Andrew. Is Nyheim Hines.
RB15 in 2020.
I'm taking Nyheim Hines.
Give me some Nyheim Hines.
I love it.
I'm fine. He was over Sam Darnold in my draft as well, because at least he was a QB RB2 one year. What has Sam Darnold been startable for you? I'm gonna go with a guy I think is an even better pick, Philip Lindsay. Everybody, Philip Lindsay's first 2 years in the league finished RB13.
Are we just
and
going
RB19
now?
Do you not get the prompt by now? That is the prompt. That's literally the prompt. We're redrafting as if we went back in time, knowing what we know now, and could redraft based on what they did and what we think they could do now. Philip Lindsay will never do anything again, but he was RB13 and RB19 for you his first 2 years. He was a starting running back in your lineup.
All right.
I will take that.
Case
Great.
closed.
Because that's the all right. So we're going on past performance. This
Where
is when we
have
know
you
that the
been?
draft
It's
has
not
fallen off.
just past performance; it's past performance and future performance. As if you're redrafting. I don't know how many times I have to go over this.
So was
Jay?
Chase Edmonds picked, or is
No, he's available.
No, he's
Jay.
still available. to you.
Okay. Because I think he's better than. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Lindsey did have some good years, but I think Chase Edmonds could bounce around as a PPR running back. I'm going to pick him. There was another running back that's close here, but I'll take Chase Edmonds off the board now since he was teased before and wasn't picked. So I'll take him out of the green room.
Wait, I need to put this up. Andrew Hayslip, what is the worst pick?
When you said that Darnold has been the worst.
He's just saying you're rude, Josh.
I am rude. That was
being
rude.
a dick.
I'm sorry. You did, Jason. Andrew, back to you with your final pick.
Yeah.
Josh Rosen.
Wait. Oh, based on
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
QB
Based
is
on
king.
past performance, I'm gonna go with Sony Michel, who won a Super Bowl for the Patriots.
I don't understand why this is like verboten with you. It's like, oh,
I don't know why you're getting defensive.
Sony
You're
Michel
the
was
one
my
who's
other guy
defensive.
here. So, I mean, Sony Michel's, he could play for another team.
Yeah,
I thought he showed pretty well.
Returned and did like really well for
I think
the
he
Rams when needed.
somewhere.
Took the place of Darrell Henderson. Yeah, no, that was a really surprising comeback, and I could see him continuing to perform in the future if needed by a team.
He was viable in starting lineups at point. Like his rookie year, you could play him, particularly down the stretch. I remember there's stretches where you could, and then there's stretches where, Sony shouldn't have been anywhere near your lineup. But he might be back, maybe.
Yeah,
he was a tough play during that kind of middle area where you're like, I feel like I should be starting him, but he's giving me. It was almost like what we got out of Myles Gaskin this last year, where you're like, all right, there's a couple good ones, but then there were points where they just wouldn't even. They'd be like, yeah, we'll rush him like 5 times.
Yeah,
this
he'd
game.
get 5
He'll go
carries.
5 for 13 yards. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantasy death.
Yeah, and it's just like that's always been the problem in New England is just like they'll never give a running back like the passing down work unless they're just a passing down back. It's like he never got passing down work. Damian Harris is kind of in the same category now where it's just like they seem to be, at least I think Damian Harris has been better than Sony Michel, but like I think Sony Michel only had like 13 total catches in New England. It was something crazy like that. Let's move to Mike, your last pick at 210.
All right, so we all know that the depths of this draft now are pretty bad, and that's why I'm going wild card on this one. I am going Daniel Carlson, kicker for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Wow.
Kickers. Wow.
We never we never specified that there's no kickers, so I
like
mean,
it. I mean, honestly, why not?
it's as good of a pick as anything else.
I want to know the state of kickers in Dynasty.
Yeah,
if there
I
are
have
Dynasty
no
leagues
kicker
who use
leagues.
kicker,
Fearsome
and how
to the
that
moon.
values
Fearsome.
There are. I am in no
one.
leagues for kickers.
I don't have any kickers in any league. So, that's probably the best pick. Probably should have went a few picks higher, honestly.
Yeah. Way early. Probably top 12. Over
God.
Baker? I mean, I don't know, maybe.
over Baker.
My next pick is, Marquez Valdez-Scantling?
No.
He's not my next Green Bay Packer receiver.
Is Equiminius St. Brown in this draft? Is he the next one on there? I mean,
Lazard's in there. I don't know.
Lazard's
I
not
feel
in
like
this draft.
I think he was a UDFA in this class.
Was he really?
That's why I have him on this list.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Way higher.
I thought Lazard was in the 2019 draft.
Lazard's fine.
We'll have to check it. Fine. I'll take Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That's who I know is at least in this draft. He's not great. He's had
Have
some
you ever
boom weeks.
started? Has anybody ever started him in?
You just don't want to take Rojo.
Yeah, no. Yes, I
You
absolutely
said he
have
was your
started him.
23, and it's 23 now.
Yeah, but also I didn't have Daniel Carlson on my list, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling was my 22.
That's true.
So that's not great. Here's my notes on Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Streamable. It's about it. If you have a bye week and you need to plug a guy in who
Not
might
wrong.
catch 3 for 80 and a touchdown, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, everybody. And actually, he had some good games down the stretch. He got more volume down the stretch this year. I don't know what that means going forward. He's no more than a streaming option for you on your roster, kind of a roster clogger guy. But that's where we are in this draft. So, Jay, bring it on home with the 212.
Speaking of roster cloggers, Ronald Jones, I think, has to be the pick here. But
a constant disappointment who will constantly be over.
You had a stretch where you could play him, but man, I don't know. He's still young. Maybe he bounces around. I'm not sure what his future is, but I think he has to go here. Because let's talk about the other guys that are not honorable mention, but here are my other guys
You
that
don't want to do honorable mentions.
Here are my Mason Rudolph. Maybe he starts for Pittsburgh. Traquan Smith
was on my honorable mention.
You never know. Justin Jackson, do you want an awesome game in the playoffs?
Jeff Wilson.
Jackson.
Jeff Wilson had a run. Jeff Wilson, honestly, maybe over.
Actually, Jeff Wilson was probably a better pick than a few of these.
Yeah, honestly, Braxton Berrios.
Barrios was my other. Barrios was my other wild card.
Honestly, I was debating him over MVS in my 24 spot. It was Braxton Berrios.
Kalen Ballage, anybody?
No.
Nah.
Barrage. Just no.
James Washington. Actually, James Washington is a legit honorable mention because I do think he's actually kind of talented, and he's a guy who I could see he's going to be on a different team next year, maybe a less crowded wide receiver room where he has some flex appeal if he gets enough value. Because I think he has some, he gets down the field. I don't think he's without talent. It was just he was with Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Chase Claypool for the past few years, and that's kind of what are you going to do in that wide receiver room? And then other than that, a lot of crap. Biggest busts of this draft, Darius Geis and Josh Rosen. Those guys, rough for a lot of different reasons. And Kerryon Johnson, who also didn't make
I'm still upset that Ian Thomas was not drafted in the top 24.
Well, you took Daniel Carlson, so
you had a chance.
That's on you.
You're not taking Ian Thomas.
You're like, I had a pick and I lit it on fire.
All it takes for evil to succeed in this world is for good people to do nothing, Mike. So keep that in mind as we do our picks going forward. And on that note, that is the end of this week's live stream of the Brothers of Dynasty podcast. Thanks so much for our special guest, Mike Hicks. Mike, thanks for joining us. Please tell people where they can find you.
First, I want to say thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Jay, it's good to see you again.
See you, Mike.
You can find me at goingfor2.com. I'm going to be writing again now that I had to take a little bit of – I needed to clear some space after the regular season was over. I was burnt out. So now that Dynasty season is back, I'll be doing some writing. I'm going to be doing some stuff over at Rum Boys Network with Robbie. I'm not sure what's going on there yet. But other than that, check me out on Twitter, and I'll see you guys in the offseason.
Thanks so much, Mike. And, of course, thank you to my two brothers, Jay and Andrew. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Josh. You can find me at JC_DFF on Twitter. Been writing some stuff for goingfor2.com, taking part in there. They got some collaboration articles going on right now. And also Fantasy Cheat Sheet. We're going to do some off-season episodes for you coming up soon. We got to figure that out. So, yeah, check me out at all those places on Going For Two or Going For Two Live.
Thanks so much, Jay and Andrew. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And you can find my Instagram and Twitter at Drusy_music and find any of the music, like the music at the top of the show from my band Ghost in the Snow at ghostinthesnow.com. That'll lead you to all the links to the streaming sites like Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, and also bring you to the socials for those like the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything you need. That's it.
All right. Thanks so much. I'm Josh Christensen, who's only value is in past performance. You can find me at DFFJChris on Twitter. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube right now, smash that subscribe button. If you're not, Brothers of Dynasty on YouTube, also on Facebook, Brothers of Dynasty, and follow us on Twitter at Bros of Dynasty. We'll be back next week when we'll go back even further to the 2017 draft, which should be maybe a little bit better. We're not doing that. What are we doing next week? I have no idea what's happening.
We're gonna review our mock draft. We're gonna do that next.
Oh yeah,
before it becomes really out of date.
Yeah, that's true. We did take a mock draft.
Tom Brady
went pretty high.
Well, higher than he would go now.
Well, this is what happens.
Anyways, we're doing an off-season startup mock draft review, so we'll have that for you next week as well. Thanks so much for listening, and have a good week. No football except for the Pro Bowl if you like it. Tune into the Senior Bowl though.
Yeah, and remember Deion Kane. He's awesome.
Oh God,
Dante Pettis and all.
I'm ending the broadcast.